Hello and welcome to our value review, where we ask ourselves the question, is Splatoon 2 really worth its price? Splatoon 2 is a sequel to Splatoon, which was released in 2015 on the Nintendo Wii U. The franchise is Nintendo's take on the shooter genre. You win by painting the floor in your color, rather than getting the most kills. The original game has released with very little content, but has brought Nintendo great success by regularly providing free updates to the game. Splatoon 2 seems to be following a similar model. Therefore, is the game really worth its price in its current state? Further, how good is the game? We'll be answering both of these questions with this review and our unique value-based scoring system. Splatoon is a game primarily focused on its online multiplayer, which is fought in 4-on-4 matches. You take on the role of a kid that is also a squid, with the ability to shapeshift between those forms. The objective in those multiplayer matches is all about territory control. By shooting your weapons, you will cover the environment in your ink's color. Doing so allows you to swim through it in squid form, making you faster and practically invisible to opposing players. In squid form, you're also able to pass through gates and to swim up walls covered in your ink. This gives you vantage points and shortcuts, allowing you to more easily gain control over your territory. However, the enemies are wide awake and are also trying to gain as much ground as possible. They will actively try to repaint your ink with theirs, and you want to stop them from doing so. This is where the combat comes in. You will now use your weapons to splatter your opponents rather than inking up the floor. A variety of weapons are at your disposal for this task. A selection of paint guns, paint rollers, buckets, and brushes along with a variety of grenades and super attacks are the tools for the job. This fresh take is a basic premise of the game, which has found a lot of appeal in the world, especially in Japan. The story of the game is kept fairly light, as is typical for Nintendo. Similar to the first game, the big zapfish that powers the city of Inkopolis has been stolen by the Octarians. Further, Callie, one of the two squid sisters, has gone missing. The remaining member Mary now recruits you to find both Callie and the great zapfish. From there on out there is very little in terms of story development, but what shines the game is its characters. There are quite a few distinct characters out there, for example the presenters Pearl and Mariner, the shopkeepers, and even the two cats hanging out on the main plaza. The personalities are clearly visible from the dialogues and expressions, and fish puns are a reoccurring theme. One point of critique that we do want to mention here though is the following. During the single player, Mary and other characters will talk to you through dialogue boxes at the bottom of the screen. It is very hard to read it when you're actually focusing on the action going on the screen, and the gibberish language is of little help. Overall though, the characters definitely add to the experience of the game. Continuing on with the single player, it is quite like the one in the first Splatoon. An overworld sectioned off into 5 distinct worlds acts as a hub for the 32 levels. The levels themselves all follow a similar structure. Multiple sequences of platforming and combat challenges in a row are presented to you, each with a checkpoint in between. Quite a few new ideas have been implemented over the original Splatoon, like carpets that roll out when you shoot them with your ink, but retract when an enemy shoots at them. A cool thing in Splatoon 2 that was locked behind amiibos in the first game is playing the single player with multiple different weapons. In this iteration, a total of 9 different weapons are available to play any level with. You are however made to play with a specific but different weapon the first time you play a level. This spices things up a bit by enabling the game to have unique challenges concerning the weapon types. This gives the game replayability, but playing a level 9 times just with different weapons will still make them feel quite repetitive. For people who have played the original Splatoon single player, you will find a very similar experience to the original game here. If you previously enjoyed it, the new elements implemented in the game, like grinding on rails, will give you enough new challenges to make it worth playthrough. However, for people on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are too little structural changes to make it a better experience to the original. Due to the structure in each level being the same, they feel indistinguishable from another, even though there is a decent variety with its gameplay elements. The environments are also quite varied, with sections taking place on beaches and even in space-like areas. Overall though, the gameplay of the single player can be described as quite a generic 3D platformer that tries to do its best with the multiplayer focused controls of Splatoon. From a technical standpoint, the game runs at a locked 60 frames per second in both undocked and docked configurations with a dynamic resolution capped at 720p and 1080p respectively. The game received quite some technical upgrades over the original game, mainly in enhanced effects and textures. All of this adds very nicely to the atmosphere of the game, which is lighthearted and gives off a 90s Nickelodeon vibe. What greatly helps the atmosphere of the game is the way the characters and background of the game is built up. All musical tracks in the game are performed by in-game bands and artists. All clothes and weapons also have brands attached to them. Another cool thing that was added is that the ink is a bit more dynamic than in the previous game. Shooting at walls or trees will make the ink drizzle down a bit, indicating that it's still quite fluid. All of these nice touches really help to build the world of the game into something that you can really immerse yourself into. Let's discuss the matchmaking before I get into the multiplayer itself. Starting the game, you'll be greeted with an intro by Pearl and Mariner telling you of the current maps and rotation. This is unfortunately still unskippable. The game, while having 8 maps in total, only lets you play on 2 maps at a time matchmaking. While this can be seen as limiting, this allows you to plan for map-specific strategies more easily. This is especially necessary as you are unable to quit or change your equipment layout while in a matchmaking lobby, which is baffling. If you want to change your equipped weapons, you are unable to continue to play with the same group of people because of it. However, the matchmaking is decent enough to throw you in with similarly skilled opponents. The latency and netcode also seem to be good enough for matches to be enjoyable. Being in a turf war against online opponents is where the fun starts. Their unique take on the shooter genre is especially strong at giving you a great adrenaline rush through a novelty effect. The game is tactical and skillful enough, however, to be able to be enjoyed past that. The game offers depth through the ability to hide in ink and getting a jump on your opponents. A large variety of different combat styles offered by the multitude of weapon options further increases the depth of the game. Each weapon you equip requires you to play differently, as they all have strengths and weaknesses. Snipers are really good at range, while being very poor at inking the floor and fighting close up. Painters are quite the opposite, as they are fantastic at covering the floor in ink and fighting in close quarters, but have very little power at range. It is these strengths and weaknesses that allow the game to have a lot of strategic meaning. As an example, if you're using a paint roller, you want to stay behind a corner or cover, and only move in when the enemy is close enough. Whenever you equip a weapon, you always equip a set, which includes a weapon, a grenade, and a special move. Special moves are very strong abilities that can help you turn the tides by offering either defensive or offensive options. Our personal favorite was a splashdown, which gets you to jump up and unleash a devastating explosion of ink after slamming down. The correct and smart users of specials can get you some serious splatters. To use one of these specials, you need to fill up your special meter, which is most efficiently done by inking the floor. This encourages players to ink the floor rather than going for splats. As the team who covered most of the turf wins the round rather than the team that got the most kills, this is a smart design choice. Another thing to mention here is the implementation of motion control aiming into the game, which actually works really well. The problem with most traditional controls in the shooters is that you usually have to choose between high or low sensitivity. A high sensitivity would mean that you can turn faster, but lose the ability to aim precisely. This applies vice versa for low sensitivity. With the option of motion controls, you could put a high sensitivity on the thumbstick and a low one on the motion. This means you now have the ability to both do fast turns and aim precisely, as you actually need to accurately aim to get hits in the game, while also having to be as mobile as possible. This is greatly appreciated. You can, however, turn off the motion controls if you so desire, and even set the options for handheld and tabletop mode differently. As Red Valley Gaming, we try to review games a bit differently to others by giving a second review score in form of a monetary value. With this value, we try to give you an objective measure of the content of the game, which is evaluated separately from the review score we give to the game. The game features 8 stages at the moment, with more promised to be added in later with free updates. The game currently features 9 different weapon types, which also have some variety within their own type. The atmosphere in the game is great, as it is formed by great music, great art design, and a world with a strong background. The single player of the game offers you a playtime of around 6 hours with fairly decent replayability. The multiplayer is unique and has a high quality in its gameplay. Overall, due to the limited amount of stages, we value Splatoon 2 at $40 at this current time. However, this value is given without considering the survival mode Salmon Run, as we are unable to test it at this current time. We will be adding its value here after we are able to determine it in our video description and on our website. Splatoon 2 is a fun game that builds and refines on the formula of the original. If you like the first game, you will like this iteration of the franchise. However, there are too few additions and changes to the game to make it appealing to people who were put off by the previous one. If you have yet to play Splatoon at all and like multiplayer shooters with a twist to their mechanics, Splatoon is a very interesting choice for you. Overall, this prompts us to give the game a score of 83. Thank you for watching. We hope you liked our review and would greatly appreciate any like or comment. If you have any questions or feedback for us, please let us know. If you want to vote yourself on how much a game should cost, you should come and check out our website. And if you want to hear more from us, please hit that subscribe button below or follow us on Twitter and Facebook. The links are in the video description below. All in all, take care. We hope to see you around.